honored to be here at your beautiful Schulman Theater here in Carlsbad. I would like to bring out our artist for this evening, Michael Paul Smith. And thank you for allowing us to do a little brief interview here so you can get to know Michael a little bit better. So praised for the distinctive warmth and richness of his voice. American baritone Michael Paul Smith is in demand as a soloist who's performed with a variety of theater companies and symphony orchestras throughout the world. His musical repertoire is eclectic and versatile. His vocal style incorporates various genres of music from spirituals and gospels to world music, R&B, spoken word, jazz, inspirational, contemporary, musical theater, and opera. Michael Paul has worked with acclaimed artists such as Placido Domingo, Florence Quivar, Vincent Cole, Little Richard, Lou Rawls, Peebo Bryson, B.J. Ward, and Audra McDonald. So, Michael, thank you for being here.
You bet.
We have a few questions, and then after we're done with the questions, we're going to turn it over to you folks in the audience and let you ask a few questions of Michael, too. So we wanted to ask, what initially attracted you to music, and when did you know that vocal artistry would be your lifelong passion?
That's a good question. Let me say good evening to all of you. First of all, well, I was pretty young. I grew up in a neighborhood where there was a lot of doo-wop, if anybody know what doo-wop is. Anybody know what doo-wop is? And it was harmonies, and you know, it was funny because I was a boy soprano, and I didn't know, I could always hit the high notes, so they always needed somebody to hit the high part on those doo-wop harmonies. And so that was where it started, and then when I was a young man, I happened to go to a church that had an amazing choir in Los Angeles called Founders, and I was corralled into going to church by my father, and we showed up at this church. I was probably about 8 years old, and they had a choir of about 200 voices at the time, and the soloists were from like the Met, San Francisco Opera, just incredible artists. And I remember they opened up the curtains in the church, and my mouth just dropped open as a kid, and not to know I was going to be a soloist there later on in my life, but I just admired singers. And, you know, so it was always there. And my brothers and sisters, I come from a big family of 9 kids. And so my older brothers and sisters, they were always singing to the radio, always singing. Everybody, there was a lot of singing going on in my house. And so, you know, I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this. And, you know, it was fun. It was fun. So I liked the idea of being a singer. Being able to sing. I never thought I would, you know, have a career or anything of that kind.
Well, it sounds like the seed was planted at a very young age. Did you have anyone who, from a young age, that you found as a mentor in your life that kind of helped you move along in your singing career?
Always, yeah. You must have mentors. And her name was Joyce Carl, and she was a friend of my father. She was a wonderful lady. Who had a career in the early 30s, the late 30s, and well, actually even before that. And it was taken away because of the 1929 crash. That affected all the arts in the country, and that's when she was kind of in her prime. So anyway, my father told her when he said, well, you know, Michael, I didn't hear about this until later. And you know, they said, well, you know, yeah, Michael's always singing in the bathroom. He's singing all the time. And, you know, why don't you take him? I got 8 other kids, you know, and you could have him. And so, so Joyce really got me exposed to the arts. And she never had any children. She was German-Irish descent, and she was very short, but very focused mind. And she just took me to creative artistic events in Los Angeles that really shaped my ideas of what an artist was. And a funny story, she would, after the concert, she would go back, we would go, she said, let's go backstage and meet the artists. And here I am, I'm like 5'10", 130 pounds, and she's like 4'11". And you can just imagine that picture of the two of us going backstage, and she would just tell the people, oh, we loved your performance, and well, here's Michael, he's gonna be a great artist and singer one day. I'm like, okay, and that's what she did. She just put it in me, and so every time I sing, I always think of Joyce, because she believed in me even when, I wanted to play basketball for the Lakers. I don't know about the singing thing. I mean, I wanted to be a shooting guard for the Lakers, so that was my dream. And, I was doing a concert really funny, and James Worthy, who was one of my favorite players, was in the audience, and I was doing something singing something from Carmen. And then afterwards, he said, man, we talked, he said, man, if I could sing like that, I would have given up my basketball career. I said, no, I don't think so, James. But it was a nice compliment for him. So it was like, and then I started gravitating toward artistic people, and so that kind of pushed it along.
It's a beautiful story to know that somebody reached out and it made all the difference in your young life.
Yeah.
So you sing a variety of styles. Is there one that is your favorite or one that is more demanding?
Wow. Well, I would say with the opera was takes longer to master the technique in opera and classical singing. So, there's always, you're singing something over and over and over. You're going over arias, you're working on languages, so it's very difficult you got to persevere with opera, and it was more fun to sing, whether it was jazz or gospel. My good friend is here tonight, Byron Smith, who's my musical director, and he's a great gospel artist in Los Angeles. But those things you could just do, and so it was difficult for a while with the classical and operatic world, because you had to have a certain level of discipline, and I never sang a song all the way through ever for the first 2 years. I just thought, okay, we just go over this one phrase over and over and over. I'm saying, when are we going to sing the whole song? And that's the classical world. It's just discipline, excellence, perseverance. And so, and to answer your question, I always enjoyed just being able to sing. Just let's stand up and sing with other singers, and so probably was the gospel thing.
Maybe a favorite gospel.
Probably at the time, but now I love it all. I love it all. I can do it all except country western. I'm sorry, country western. I haven't gotten into country western. But,
well, you recently released your last CD. I noticed was a jazz CD.
Yeah, jazz CD. Yeah, jazz CD.
Boy.
Yeah,
So I read that you performed opera in China and spirituals on the road with Little Richard.
Yeah.
There have to be some wonderful stories from that.
Yeah. Well, I should start off with Little Richard. Boy, that was we were touring in the South. We had 3 Yellow Canary Eldorados, and so we're just driving through the South, and with Richard, he wasn't a rock and roller. He was doing Christian music at the time, so it wasn't quite as crazy as him doo-wop-a-dee bop-a-dee-da, the buffoon hair and all that. He was more mild, but we toured the South for about 3 weeks in a canary yellow Cadillacs, 3 of them, and we were his backup singers, and that was great. And then I had a chance to go to China with the opera La Boheme, and I sang the part of Chenard, and it was a wonderful experience being in China, Shanghai, and Beijing, and we did a concert in Beijing at this theater. It seated about 10,000 people. It was incredible. I was like, oh my gosh, and I sang a song I'm doing tonight. Every time I feel the Spirit, I will pray every time I feel the Spirit. And they loved it. They were like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And my other classical singers were back there saying, maybe we should have sang a spiritual too, Michael. I said, I don't know. But it was great. Yeah, I had a wonderful time. It was really really shaped me in a different way, seeing China during that time. And it was pretty amazing, yeah, pretty amazing experience, so, yeah.
So from all of your experience, what part of either education or training do you think is the one piece that you've carried around with you that's made a big difference for you?
Well, all of my teachers always say it's all technique. It's all technique. So you have to have a technique. You have to have a technique to carry on a vocal career. You could sing on talent for maybe till you're 40, and then after that, you see people, we call them the disappearing divas, or divos. They sing till they're 40 and they blow their voice out. So you have to, I think, I'm dedicated to keeping my technique alive. So I'm always working on technique. And the question was asked to Nolan Ryan, the famous baseball pitcher, and he said, my gosh, how can you still throw, a 95 fastball? And he says, all technique, so it helps if you have you've been touched by, the divine creator, so, that's always a good thing, but you're obligated to work on, technique. You have to be in shape. You got to keep it in shape always, so.
So as an artist, what do you think was the biggest challenge that you experienced, and how did you overcome it?
Well, just persevering. As an artist, our country doesn't support the arts as much as other countries, and that's what I discovered. When I started traveling and going to Europe and Asia, they treated us like royalty when we was in China. It was just like, you have royal treatment, but in the States, we don't appreciate the artists as much. And, artists are what changes society, the artists. And whether it's a writer, or it's a musician, or, on and on, the actors or what have you, it's the artist that changes, that moves our society forward, and not the politicians, so I shouldn't say that, but it's the artist that really shapes the culture of a society. And so we don't reap the benefit because we don't push the arts universally. So I'd like to see the arts maintained in public schools and low-income areas and things like that. Where there's affluence, they know the importance of that because it helps to make you a more humane individual to be in the arts. But, I think that's one thing we need to look at it in our country. And when I do my show, you'll see the importance of being an artist, how powerful it is to be an artist in our society. And I think that's a real essential ingredient for our civilization, for humanity. So,
well, and that's why we're so grateful for programs such as this. So after our discussion, we're going to be enjoying the performance of A Tribute to Paul Robeson, which is your one-man show that honors the late civil rights activist, attorney, athlete, and performer, Paul Robeson.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to write and produce this tribute to Paul Robeson?
Oh, wow. Yes. It was amazing. I was blown away when I discovered who he was, and it was a situation where I was touring with this group, Albert McNeil Jubilee Singers, which was an international singing group, and it's an intimate group, about 12 singers. And each year we would travel to Europe or to Asia or South America. And so when I was able to get away from work, because I had to maintain a full-time job, we found ourselves in Italy, and great. I love the Italians. I love the I love the food. I love the music. I love the passion of the Italian. And so we were performing there, and as usual, we have a reception afterwards. So it was a reception, and so we're in the back, talking, and I see this older gentleman coming towards me with perhaps his son or grandson, and he was pretty old. He's probably in his late 70s or something at the time. And they just beeline towards me, and I'm like, they're coming right at me, they're coming walking right towards me, And so they got up and was, buongiorno signore, scusi. That's about the extent of my Italian. And she said, well, my father says, you remind him of a Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson, oh, okay. I was like, is that a compliment or what? I didn't know. Thank you. And so he said he's so sorry we did not support Paul Robeson more. We did not support him. My grandpa, see. And he just, and I'm just like, this amazing little vignette of drama happening in front of me. I'm like, wow, okay. Wow, thank you, I mean, I wasn't doing namaste then, but that would have been a namaste moment for me. And so, I said, who's this guy, Paul Robeson? And I said, okay, well, I guess he's somebody. And then the following year, we were in Japan, and I distinctly remember did a concert in Japan at the reception, the same thing. And an older Japanese gentleman and his son, again, we're standing there, and they're making a beeline right towards me. I'm pretty shy. You may not know that, but I'm a shy guy. And so they're like walking right towards me, and I'm talking to my friend. And, they bow and say, oh, we liked your singing. And, my grandfather said, you remind him of Paul Robeson. Oh, here we go again. Who's this guy, Paul Robeson? I didn't know who he was. Here I am. I was a history major at UCLA and a minor in African American history. I never heard of this guy. So I went to Dr. McNeil, who's our musical director and conductor. I said, Albert, who's Paul Robeson? He really didn't know much about him either. He said, yeah, he's that guy that sings Old Man River. He just, And I was like, oh, okay. No, but you sound better than him, Michael. You don't. I said. So I researched him, and then I was just blown away by this man's resume of accomplishments. And I said, somebody has to tell this story. There's no way nobody is telling this story. This guy's amazing. He's an amazing human being, not only African American, a Negro, but he's just an amazing human being. And so this story needs to go forward. And so I didn't think it was me. I was humbled. I was like, I don't know, but it just nabbed at me. It kept at me. So I just said, somebody said, just do something, a tribute to him, Michael. And so it began, and all the pieces started falling into place. The right people, and all of a sudden, I was finding books on Paul Robeson. Somebody left this for you, Michael. It's anonymous, and somebody left this book for you. Oh, Paul Robeson. Oh, okay. It's Martin Dumerman's book. Oh, okay. And somebody's, sending me articles, emailing articles. So it just went like that. I couldn't believe it. It was just, this has to be something I have to do. So
it's a big story. So I understand in reading some of the history of the show that you got involved with the famous director Gordon Hunt.
Yeah.
And that must have been an amazing piece
Yeah.
to take the show even further.
Yeah, Gordon Hunt, marvelous director, the father of Helen Hunt, the marvelous Academy Award winner. And I just met him just by accident. I was doing something with his wife, who was a singer. We were doing, she was doing a thing called stand-up opera in Hollywood. And she wanted a singer, particularly African-American singer, sing the duet of Porgy and Bess with her. And so the whole shtick was, she was singing, and she would say, I've auditioned for Porgy and Bess. As you know, it's primarily an African-American cast. And they never call me back, so she's Caucasian. So that was a big, But I love this song, and so she said, I'm gonna just sing the duet. And I'm sitting in the audience. And so she starts to, they start playing, and then I just start singing in the back. Bess, you is my woman now. You is. And then people are like, what the heck is going on? And I stand up, and then I march down to the stage, and we'd sing the duet, Kill the House. It's great. They love it. Kill the House. And this was Gordon's wife. He had staged everything, and I didn't know who he was, basically. It's a little guy running around the kitchen, eating potato chips. That's all I saw him. And she said, you need to talk to Gordon about your project. I said, why? She said, well, I didn't know who he was. And I talked to him, and he became my biggest advocate. He invited me. I started studying acting with Gordon, and he said, don't worry, but you don't have to pay me, Michael. I want to be involved with this project. I think it's great, blah, blah, blah. And so, I was very fortunate, and I met who's who in Hollywood because of Gordon, and that came through there. And anyway, so he's passed on. I'm sorry, you've met him, so he was amazing. She came to some of my acting classes with him. And
He's looking down, I'm sure. So one other aspect of tonight's performance, which is very important, is your amazing accompanist, Byron J. Smith. So
Yeah.
would you tell us a little bit more, because Byron is very famous in his own right.
yes, he is. Yes, he is. Byron Smith. I call him my cousin. My cuz, you know. And you know, we've been knowing each other for 30 years. And I did this originally in 2001 at the Hollywood Center for Spiritual Living, Dr. Bitzer's church. And we did that, was the first, and Byron was my musical director. And so he's been with me all along. So anyway, Byron has a marvelous group. I sing with him in a gospel group called Spirit Chorale, and he's traveled all over the world with that. He's a faculty member at one of the local community colleges in Los Angeles, LA Harbor. And Byron is the president emeritus of the National Association of Negro Musicians, which just celebrated their centennial anniversary, 1919. And Byron was, he has served as president, I don't know, for 5 years, Byron? 6 years. And Byron is, you know, I'm so happy to have someone of his caliber collaborating with me, you know, and you'll enjoy him. I could stop singing. You're going to just enjoy hearing him do his thing. He's a marvelous composer. His work has gone all over the world to various choirs. Trying to get him to get going, man. We need to tour more, Byron, and we need to tour more internationally. So we talk about
I know
that.
a big piece of it from hanging around backstage is keeping alive the Negro spiritual.
Yeah.
And understanding the importance from a historical perspective in all of music that's American music.
Yeah. Well, that's you know, that's the I believe that's the indigenous music of this country is the Negro spiritual. It evolved out of the slave experience. You know, 1619, I guess, was before the Mayflower, and the Negro spiritual really depicted the life of the people that came here who were not allowed to be taught to read, to do anything, and the family was broken up. So it has a deep calling that's born out of sorrow and born out of a very difficult life, yet surviving to a yet glorious joy, you know, as well. So it just is the basis of so much, you know, as you know, all other forms of jazz and blues comes out of the spiritual. Yeah, it's the seed of the Negro spiritual, and it's so beautiful. In fact, Paul says it's only when I sing the spiritual that I seem to touch into an experience of God, with God, is when I'm singing the Negro spiritual. And I know I've experienced that, you know, singing spirituals with Byron and the group. We do a lot of a cappella work together, and we sing the spirituals. And what happens, the synergy of all of that, you get this glorious tingle to your body, and that's all I can express it. We call it the spirit, right, Byron? Spirit Chorale, and we get the spirit, and amen. And you know, it's just it's like drinking from the fountain of youth. You know, if there is anything as the fountain of youth, it's that feeling that comes over you when you're involved in anything creative to that extent, and pouring your heart into it and your voice and all that. So
I've been lucky enough to listen, so grateful of that. So at this time, thank you so much for all my questions. I'm going to turn it over to the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to ask Michael the question? Oh, I see some hands. It's a little tough to see. There was somebody right over here. There you go. Yes. With the hat.
I'm visiting my friend from New York. I'm from New York City, and I sing in a choir at the Senior Baptist Church in New York.
oh yeah.
Wow.
And
What's
I'm
that?
not a professional singer, but singing is something that I enjoy doing, and I have a passion for the Negro spiritual.
Yeah.
I was wondering, have you ever been a part of a choir or any working or singing in the church? Because a lot of famous singers, African-American singers, have come out of the church.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned the church, but you didn't mention whether you were inspired by Negro spirituals, but did you ever sing Negro spirituals in the church, a choir, etc.?
Yeah, thank you for that. My experience was singing with the Albert Manil Jubilee Singers, and they, Dr. McNeil, he was an advocate of the Negro spiritual to such a degree, and he wanted to mainstream that group, and which he did. He was able to mainstream. But that's when I really tasted the fullness of it, and then after that, I was changed forever. I come from a biracial family, so my mom is Mexican and my father is African American. So, we kind of hit the middle. He was a Pentecostal, and so we were like all about the spirit. He was like, we have church, he starts singing, and then we just start, just break out. So I didn't really get a handle on the Negro spiritual until I got in the group. And then we started, I just started getting exposed to various churches, singing with Byron. We still go in LA and rock some of these churches in LA. Byron's calling me all the time. And there's an opportunity there. And I love that. It's a very powerful vehicle. And, so my career now has incorporated world music. So I use the Negro spiritual and to find the depth of emotion, and because it's easier for me to find it better than perhaps an Italian aria, just the language differences or something. But I relish the opportunity to sing the spirituals. Even now, just getting the show ready, I had to go back into that place. And it's marvelous. It's just a marvelous way to express anyone. And you don't have to be black or Negro or Afro-Caribbean or any of that. You could just sing it. You just sing it, and if you sing it with your heart, you'll get the essence of it. You don't have to be particular color or anything of that, to sing the Negro spiritual. I sing all kind of music. I sing, and so. If you have the heart, if you can pour your heart into any of the music, but we love the Negro spiritual. We just lost a beautiful representative of Negro spiritual, Jessie Norman, and she made her transition. It was a beautiful, very beautiful artist. And I've worked with Kathleen Battle, and these are people that are world-class artists who still brings the spiritual to the forefront in their careers. And so, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Such a great question. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, sir.
You said you started singing the high notes. Do you still hit them nowadays?
Oh, man. We'll see tonight how that goes. It's funny how the voice fluctuates, the most freakish voice for a man is the tenor voice. It's the most difficult to manage and the most difficult. You never know. Pavarotti said, I die every night because I don't know if my voice is going to be there. I die every night. And that's the nature of the voice. So for me, I always had a very good range, and that had nothing to do with me. I just had it, and so it was just a matter of building that range. One of my great last teachers was a guy named Johnny Savelli, and he was a tenor, a high lyric tenor. And so we just worked on the high voice. We just worked high voice, high voice, high voice. He took me to Italy a couple of times, and we went and I sang for some impresarios in Italy, and was a marvelous teacher. I followed him around like a little puppy, everywhere he went. And he would just say, okay, Michael, just start sing something right now. I said, well, Johnny, we're in Macy's. What do you mean sing something? Yeah, see that piano over there? Just go ahead and start singing something. So he got me out of being shy as a singer, just sing. And we would go to a lot of the Italian restaurants and, go sing something, Michael, go sing. You had to sing, you just go up and sing, and, you go through this whole process as an artist when you get up there and present your gift. It's all this back talk. Well, I'm not warmed up, this is that, I don't know, there's so many good people singing, But you learn to get rid of that and just present your gift. And the high voices is, that's a tricky thing, getting that high, getting the high. And but once you have it, once you have the feeling, you never lose it. But if you never have the feeling, I've seen so many tenors sweat in the back, and it's like, the B flat's coming, I know, the B flat's coming, the high B flat's coming, I know it's coming. And they're just like, they're just sweating. I mean, they're just like losing 5 pounds just right before they go on, And that's kind of the nature of the beast, and, so, yeah, good luck with your journey on that. But once you have it, it's glorious, it's glorious. It's a glorious sound, yeah.
There's so much more to it that those of us don't know. Yes, right here in the front.
Yes, I wasn't very surprised when you said that the people in Japan and Europe would approach you and say, you reminded them of Paul Robeson, but I'm not so surprised that you didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
And certainly the people in the rest of the world did, because this government of our country made a very concerted effort to erase him from history. One of the greatest human beings to ever walk this planet, and yet very few people know about him. He's talented in so many ways, an athlete, a genius, an actor, singer, just the most amazing man.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, you can come up. We can do the show together, you and I. Yeah, that's why I felt. After I got on the journey, I started. There's a gentleman teaching a course just on Paul Robeson at UCLA now. Finally, and I met him, and we supped and we spent time together, and I did some work for him at the time. So I started meeting people who was trying to bring his name forward. I love his son, Paul Jr.
Yeah.
If you haven't read his book, The Uncovered Paul Robeson, amazing line. I'm a history major, so I love those kind of anecdotal things and events that the son talks about. And it's, how growing up, being a father who's a superstar.
My older brother was, lucky enough at 4 years old to be held by Paul Robeson.
Yeah.
There's a pretty well-known photo of it. Yeah, it was on the cover of a magazine.
Oh, I think I've seen that photo. So I put together some photos for
Oh,
tonight,
yeah.
and he's had such a big life. It was hard to cut them down. But several were of Paul Robeson holding children, and frequently they were very diverse children of the world. So I should have put that in there.
Well, I have to say, I feel as though evening of 1 hour of Paul is an injustice to his life, but it's something. I wanted to do something. This has to be like Wagner, The Ring, or something. You need 3 days of performance just on Paul's life. You go on like that. That's what it is. It's there's so many other individuals that are doing it. What's a joke to me is like, we have all these Elvis impersonators all over the country, and they're all working. They're all getting, and he touched nothing to the degree that Paul did. So the guys who are out doing Paul Robeson, I say there's enough for everyone. There's enough there for everyone to share. It's the story. It's all about story. Life is about the human story. I don't care who you are. What's your story? What's your story? And if you have a great story, I don't care if you're from China. I don't care if you're, Cesar Chavez, or, these people came from different places and just have great stories. Paul is a great story. And I'm not saying I'm even scratching the surface really tonight, I hope you'll leave tonight with the idea of finding more about his life and the things that he was involved in and the things he was willing to sacrifice, to make this whole world better.
Well, the photo was in 1949, and that was about a week before the Peekskill riots, where, of course, Robeson was stoned by the people, and he couldn't go on with the concert.
Yeah. We're gonna,
tell a little bit about that. Well, thank you for giving your time before your performance.
Oh,
Okay,
question.
sorry.
It's a short question. I just wanted to know what year, approximately, what year you went to China, the first time you went to China, the first time you went to Italy?
It was there in 87.
87.
It was, I think, a year before Tiananmen Square.
Wow, wow.
And yeah, I saw people, women who had their feet wrapped. I never seen, you know,
No car.
and there's she was being carried, and you know, her feet were about this big. It was like, and that just was amazing to me, to culturally, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, and this is what I really pride and I really enjoy about music. It's allowed me to travel the world and to have a bigger perspective than just the United States, a bigger perspective than just Carlsbad, a bigger perspective than Los Angeles. So it's allowed me to view, have a larger scale of the planet. You know, this is the planet we live on, you know, so that has helped me so much throughout my career, that I've traveled and I've seen how other people live, and I see how the stereotypes just aren't true across the board. And so I just continue to travel, continue to sing, trying to find people to pay for me to go sing and travel. So that's my treatment and my affirmation in my life, is to do more of that and to share my gifts. So